The Charlotte Hornets get swept by the Boston Celtics in this back-to-back mini series, and for the second night in a row, it was a ref show. More on that soon, but before I get into the game, I have to talk about the pre-game injury report. Brandon came back, so that was nice. Although I question if he couldn't play yesterday, then how could he play today? Like, what's the difference in 23 hours? Like, what difference is that making? Maybe he wasn't actually ready to go. Maybe they deliberately saved him for the second night of a back-to-back, which has some strategic merit, being a fresh player going into the second game where everyone's worn down. But I just didn't get that information. I'm just happy that he played, and hopefully this is permanent. Like, there's no injury management stuff where he has to miss games to manage his injury, But as one player re-enters the lineup, another exits. Actually, others exit the lineup because there's multiple. I was too busy talking about the ref show in the previous game that I forgot to mention that Nick Richards actually didn't play in the second half of that game because of an injury, and I didn't even factor that into his player grade. So yeah, he was out, leaving the Hornets with no real big men, forcing Grant to start and forcing guys like Diabate and T. John to play more than they would have if there was a healthy roster. There was even a Taj Gibson signing. Like, yeah, the big man situation was rough. And I blame Mark because when he's out, players have to overcompensate and play more minutes and put their bodies at risk more for injuries. It just seems like a cycle that the Hornets can't break out of, because to break out of it, everyone has to be healthy, so no one overcompensates. But Mark is holding that up right now, and I want to know what exactly is going on with him. Also, no Seth Curry in this game, out with knee soreness, and I got the feeling that he wasn't going to be playing with it being a back-to-back and with him being like an older player. I said that he didn't belong on the court because he just couldn't defend. Like, he was too small. They always like ran him in some type of action, but spot minutes would have been nice for sure. Now getting into the game, the Hornets got off to yet another bad start, being down 38-24 in the first quarter because of some horrendous play from LaMelo Ball. He was just a turnover fouling machine and couldn't buy a bucket. And it's not like the Celtics forced him into those mistakes. Like, it was all him. That, along with the Celtics 3-point shooting finally catching up to them, put the Hornets in a hole. There were some times when too much help was being brought, but for the most part, the Celtics just made normal threes. Like, that's it. That's going to happen. In the second quarter, the only thing of note was that LaMelo finally started warming up. 15 points in the quarter, but on the other end, it was just normal Celtic stuff. But to be more specific, they let Peyton Pritchard really get off in this quarter, and he got a decent amount of shots that were created off offensive rebounds or 50-50 balls or luck, basically, I would say. Like, there was a play when he almost turned it over trying to pass it to his big, but then he got it back and relocated for a three. Luck-based stuff and 50-50 stuff have been problems all season long for the Hornets, which against this team with LaMelo turning it over and being in foul trouble, they just can't have that going against them as well. In the third quarter, the Hornets came out with their hair on fire. It was a LaMelo playmaking masterclass, just getting threes for Brandon, Grant, and even a Miles three that he didn't necessarily assist. He still created that. The Hornets cut the lead down to a 3-point ball game, but that was the closest that they got because Grant kept on hoisting up threes, trying to go for the big play, while the Celtics responded with a 15-6 run to close out the quarter. It also helped that LaMelo was on the bench with 4 fouls. I look at that stretch as a crucial point in this game. I feel like the game plays out differently if they take the lead there because the Celtics were rattled and out of sorts, but by hoisting up threes and missing, they gave the Celtics a chance to regain their balance, I would say. Then in the fourth quarter, LaMelo turned it on. Brandon, however, didn't, and really, it was just the exact same playbook from the previous game, this time with Jason Tatum because Jaylen Brown was out. They made LaMelo guard, and they fouled him out of the game. They just kept on giving up the switches too easily, and when they gave up the switch, they doubled, leading to opportunities elsewhere. I just really don't like that they kept on giving up the switch and making LaMelo defend. But yeah, he fouled out. Didn't matter anyways. The Hornets were always behind like 10 or 12 points in this quarter. Like, I never got the feeling that they were going to win this one. Also, all throughout this game, the officiating was bad yet again. It wasn't the story like it was in the previous game, but it still wasn't good. Tatum held Brandon on a dunk, which didn't get called and had more potential for injury than the call that Grant got tossed for in the previous game, considering that Brandon was airborne. So it really makes no sense how Tatum didn't pick up a foul there. Speaking of Tatum, he got to bear hug LaMelo, which of course wasn't called a foul. But then on the other end, they call a landing space foul on LaMelo, even though he didn't even touch Tatum. Also, the screening that they allowed was very inconsistent. Like, it seemed like every time the Hornets wanted to run some screen action, it's an offensive foul, while Kata legitimately set illegal screens. Like, based on the way that the game was being called on the Hornets end, at least, his screens were illegal. But none of them were called, which mattered because it led to a bunch of Peyton Pritchard threes. Also, bringing it back to Jason Tatum, he shot 17 free throws while the Hornets only shot 9. That's almost double. I'm a guy that always says that free throws aren't the end-all be-all of officiating. There's more factors like missed calls that can't be tracked with the free throw disparity. And when they call the fouls, like, are they momentum changing fouls or inconsequential, I would say. Also, some teams' play styles are just better for drawing fouls. And a fairly officiated game doesn't always mean that both teams will take the same amount of free throws. With all of that being said, there's just no way, based on how this game was being called, that Tatum should have got almost double the amount of free throws as the Hornets. He can still have the free throws, but give the Hornets some free throws as well, because they were not calling it fair on both sides. The Hornets were called for a lot of soft calls, which is actually fine if it's going to be called the same way on both ends, which didn't happen, and that's why the officiating was bad in both games. I don't need the Hornets to shoot the exact same number of free throws. I just need them to get the same quality of calls as the other teams. Like, if you're going to ref the game a certain way for the Celtics, ref the exact same way for the Hornets. And yeah, I don't have the biggest platform or anything, but I've got to stand up for the Hornets and contribute to getting the word out in any way that I can, because I want things to change. 2 very winnable games against the Celtics got ruined by the refs, and if the Hornets want to make the playoffs this season, they just can't be playing 5 versus 8 basketball, especially with no center tonight. It's ridiculous. Now it's time for player performance grades. LaMelo is going to get an A. Highest scoring game of the season so far, which is great. That's what largely gets him the A. I don't really care that he scored like 4 out of his 36 points in garbage time. If you have no chance to win the game, at least make an all NBA team. Then potentially the Hornets could get more respect for having an all NBA player on the team. So I'm for it. But no plus tacked onto the grade because he didn't score in the first quarter, which contributed to the Hornets having to claw their way back into this game. Also, the turnovers and fouls were a big issue, but it was still a great performance. Brandon Miller is going to get a C-. He looked fine out there, really opened the game up for LaMelo with his 3-point shooting, but the defense was 50-50 and he wasn't good in the fourth quarter. Like, he's probably got to get his rhythm back or something. Miles Bridges is just going to get an F. Although there wasn't a ton of hero ball from him, he was definitely a ball stopper, and when he wasn't a ball stopper, he was just standing around and didn't contribute to the offense. Like, whenever he touched the ball, nothing really happened. Hoping that he's able to find his role on the team soon. Josh Green is going to get an A. He didn't play the most minutes, but in his minutes, he had some all right defense and good 3-point shooting, which is all I want from him. Grant Williams is going to get a D. I didn't really feel his impact out there. Plus, I said that he kept on hoisting up threes at a crucial time where if the Hornets took the lead there, I could see this being a game. Also, he missed the floater badly. Like, yeah, this just wasn't his night. Trey Mann is going to get a C. He was all right, but he definitely lost the Peyton Pritchard matchup this time around. Cody Martin is going to get a B. Still want him off the team, but I'll give it to him this game. He was fine in this one. Scoring wise, inside the arc wise, the 3-point shooting and defense is never there, but whatever, he's all right. I'll group Musa Diabate and T-John Salon into the same group and give them both Fs for this game. They didn't really score it like that, and I didn't like that T-John kept on hoisting up threes like he's a volume shooter. And yeah, they weren't the best at defense either, I've got to say. Nick Smith Jr. is going to get an F. He took some selfish shots trying to get himself in a rhythm, and he wasn't that effective in this matchup. And Taj Gibson, like, whatever. Like, I'm not going to give this guy an actual grade. He didn't even play enough minutes to get a grade, and it's clear that he's not a real player, just a vet. The Charlotte Hornets play the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday. Most of the LaMelo versus Ant showdowns that I remember have been mid-off, so hopefully they put on a solid performance, and hopefully it's a Hornets win. That would be nice. But yeah, that is all for now.